Entropy and order are partners. The hidden architecture of creation, decay, and becoming. Part 1. The false war between order and decay. Why this knowledge was hidden. Human civilization has been shaped by a single, deeply embedded assumption: that order is good, that decay is bad, that entropy is a threat, that stability is success. This assumption is so foundational that nearly every system built by humanity, economic, religious, psychological, political, reflects it. We worship permanence. We fear dissolution. We mistake breakdown for failure. But this worldview is fundamentally inverted. The universe itself does not operate this way. Entropy is not a flaw in creation. Entropy is the means by which creation continues. Order is not the goal. Order is a temporary configuration within a much larger process. To understand this is to reverse one of the deepest illusions ever implanted in the human mind. Chapter 1. The Misdefinition of Entropy 1.1. The Cultural Lie About Entropy. In popular culture, entropy is portrayed as decay, rot, chaos, randomness, destruction, the heat death of meaning. This portrayal is not scientific, it is psychological projection. Entropy does not mean things falling apart for no reason. Entropy means the number of possible configurations available to a system increases over time. Entropy is not mess. Entropy is freedom of arrangement. When entropy increases, a system gains more ways to be. That is not destruction. That is potential expanding. 1.2. The second law of thermodynamics, without fear. The second law states, in an isolated system, total entropy never decreases. This does not mean order cannot arise, structure cannot form, life cannot exist. It means order is local and temporary. Structure requires energy flow. Stability is never absolute. The universe is not collapsing into chaos. The universe is exploring its own possibility space. Chapter 2. Order is expensive. 2.1. Why order requires constant energy. Order does not exist freely. To maintain order, a system must consume energy, expel waste, resist equilibrium. This is true for stars, cells, civilizations, identities, beliefs. The more rigid the order, the higher the cost. Eventually, the cost exceeds the system's capacity. Collapse follows, not as punishment, but as release. 2.2. Entropy as pressure, not evil. Entropy applies pressure toward transformation. It asks, is this structure still useful? Is this configuration still adaptive? Is this form still alive? When the answer is no, entropy dismantles it. Not maliciously, efficiently. Entropy is the universe's way of preventing stagnation. Chapter 3. The Cosmic Origin of Entropy and Time. 3.1. Why time exists at all time is not fundamental. Time emerges because entropy increases. If entropy did not increase, past and future would be indistinguishable. No directionality would exist. No memory could form. Time flows in the direction of increasing entropy. Entropy is the arrow of time. Without entropy, no history, no causality, no story, no becoming. 3.2. The low entropy beginning of the universe. One of the most counterintuitive truths in physics is this: the early universe was highly ordered. It was smooth, uniform, low entropy. This extreme order is what made all future complexity possible. The universe did not begin chaotic. It began compressed with potential. Entropy is the process by which that potential unfolds. Chapter 4. Gravity, entropy's accomplice. 4.1. Why clumping is an entropic process. Most people think entropy means things spread out, but gravity flips the intuition. In gravitational systems, clumping increases entropy. Structure formation is entropic. When matter collapses, energy is released as heat. Radiation escapes. Total entropy increases. Stars form because entropy increases, not despite it. 4.2 Stars as entropy engines. A star is not a static object. It is a furnace, a pressure release valve, a conversion engine. Hydrogen fuses into helium. Energy radiates outward. Entropy increases. Stars are entropy made luminous. Chapter 5. Stellar death is creative. 5.1 Supernovae and the birth of complexity. When massive stars die, they explode. Heavy elements are forged. Matter is scattered. Carbon, oxygen, iron, gold. These elements cannot form without stellar death. Every complex structure in your body exists because entropy ended stars. 5.2 You are made of cosmic decay. This is not poetry. This is literal physics. Your bones, blood, and breath are assembled from exploded suns, collapsed cores, dispersed matter. Death is not the opposite of life. Death is life-changing scale. Chapter 6. Life as a temporary entropy dam. 6.1 What life actually is. Life is not a violation of thermodynamics. Life is a localized resistance within a larger flow. A living organism absorbs low entropy energy, maintains internal structure, releases high entropy waste. Life is a pattern held briefly against dissolution. A wave, not a rock. 6.2 Why life must end. Immortality would violate adaptability. A system that cannot decay, cannot evolve, cannot renew, cannot transform. Death is not a bug. Death is a feature that preserves creativity. Chapter 7. Evolution runs on entropy. 7.1 Mutation is disorder. Mutation is genetic entropy. It introduces noise, variation, error. Without mutation, no evolution, no adaptation, no novelty. Entropy provides the raw material. Selection shapes it. 7.2 Perfection is evolutionary death. A perfect organism cannot adapt. Entropy keeps life unfinished. That incompleteness is its strength. Chapter 8. The brain. Order. Balancing on chaos. 8.1 Consciousness lives at the edge. Neuroscience confirms what mystics intuited. The brain operates between rigidity and randomness. Too much order. Obsession. Dogma. Rigidity. Too much chaos. Psychosis. Fragmentation. Noise. Consciousness emerges on the edge. 8.2 Creativity requires breakdown. Every creative leap involves old patterns dissolving, assumptions breaking, identity loosening. Entropy is the gateway to insight. Chapter 9. Ancient wisdom saw this clearly. 9.1 Taoism and reversal. The Tao Te Ching teaches that reversal is the movement of the Tao. Decay is not deviation, it is return. 9.2 Heraclitus and eternal flux. Heraclitus taught that reality is fire, perpetual transformation. Stability is illusion, change is law. 9.3 Hindu cosmology and sacred destruction. Shiva's destruction is not evil. It clears space for rebirth. Entropy is divine function. Chapter 10. Scripture and Sacred Decay. 10.1 Death as multiplication. Unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. Bible decay is not loss. Decay is increase through transformation. 10.2 Ecclesiastes and cycles. Nothing is permanent. Everything returns. This is not nihilism. This is cosmic rhythm. Part 1 Conclusion. What we have established so far is foundational. Entropy is not destruction. Order is not permanent. Decay is not failure. Creation is ongoing. In part 2, we will go deeper into alchemy and nigredo, psychological entropy and the dark night, information theory and meaning, civilization collapse as entropic renewal, why suffering exists, why resistance to decay creates hell. Part 2. Alchemy, psychological entropy, and the necessity of breakdown. Chapter 11. Why all transformation begins with breakdown. There is a pattern so universal that it appears in physics, biology, psychology, mysticism, mythology, scripture. That pattern is this: no higher order structure emerges without a prior loss of stability. Stability feels safe, stability feels successful, stability feels like a rival. But stability is sterile, a system that never destabilizes, never learns, never adapts, never transcends itself. Entropy is the destabilizing force that forces growth. Chapter 12. Alchemy, the science of sacred decay. 12.1. Alchemy was never about gold. Alchemy has been misunderstood as primitive chemistry. In truth, it was a symbolic science, a psychological map, a cosmological mirror. Alchemists understood something modern culture forgot. Matter, mind, and spirit transform by the same laws. The first stage of alchemy is nigredo, the blackening. 12.2 Nigredo, the black stage. Nigredo is rot, decay, dissolution, putrefaction, confusion, loss of identity. The alchemical texts describe matter decomposing, forms collapsing, substances turning black. This was not metaphorical. They observed that before recombination, substances must lose structure. Psychologically, nigredo corresponds to depression, existential crisis, loss of meaning, identity collapse, dark night of the soul. This is entropy entering the psyche. 12.3. Why nigredo cannot be skipped. Modern culture tries to bypass nigredo. It medicates it, distracts from it, labels it pathological, suppresses it. But alchemy is explicit. Those who flee the black stage never reach gold. Gold is not added. Gold emerges once false structures decay. Chapter 13. Psychological entropy and the ego. 13.1. The ego is a low entropy structure. The ego is a stable narrative, a defined identity, a constrained pattern. It requires repetition, reinforcement, certainty. The ego hates entropy because entropy introduces uncertainty, dissolves boundaries, threatens identity coherence, but growth requires entropy. 13.2. Why identity crises are initiations. An identity crisis is not a malfunction. It is entropy testing the usefulness of a structure. Questions arise. Who am I really? Why do I believe this? What if everything I built was incomplete? These questions feel dangerous because they loosen order, but they also create space. No space, no transformation. Chapter 14. The dark night of the soul. Mystics across traditions describe a phase where God feels absent, meaning collapses. Practices feel empty, certainty dissolves. This experience appears in Christian mysticism, Sufism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Kabbalah. This is spiritual entropy. 14.1. St. John of the Cross and Sacred Emptiness. St. John described the dark night not as punishment, but as purification. Old images of God dissolve. Old beliefs lose power. Emotional rewards vanish. Why? Because the soul has outgrown its previous structure. Entropy removes false order. 14.2. Why God withdraws from a systems perspective. Early faith requires structure. Mature faith requires openness. God does not leave. The form through which God was known decays. Presence remains. Concepts collapse. Chapter 15. Information Theory, Entropy and Meaning. 15.1 Entropy as Uncertainty. In information theory, entropy measures unpredictability, information content, possible messages. A perfectly predictable message contains no information. Example, zero information, meaning requires variation. 15.2 Revelation requires entropy. A mind with zero uncertainty cannot learn, cannot receive insight, cannot be surprised. Revelation arrives when expectations fail, certainty breaks, openness increases. Entropy is the gateway to meaning. Chapter 16. Civilizations and Entropic Cycles. 16.1 Why all civilizations collapse. No civilization collapses because of entropy alone. They collapse because they resist it. They over-optimize, over-centralize, over-stabilize, suppress variation. Eventually, flexibility vanishes, adaptation slows, brittleness increases. Collapse is not failure. Collapse is complexity resetting. 16.2 Entropy as civilizational renewal. After collapse, resources redistribute, ideas recombine, new cultures emerge. History does not move upward forever. It moves cyclically, spiraling through entropy. Chapter 17. Why suffering exists. This is one of the most important revelations. Suffering is not random. Suffering is not punishment. Suffering is not meaningless. Suffering arises when consciousness resists entropy, identity clings to impermanence, order is defended beyond usefulness, pain is friction against transformation. 17.1 Pain versus suffering. Pain is information. Suffering is resistance. Entropy introduces change. Resistance turns change into suffering. Acceptance allows transformation. Chapter 18. Hell is entropy resisted. Across traditions, hell is described as rigidity, repetition, stagnation, isolation, eternal sameness. Hell is not fire. Hell is frozen identity. Entropy cannot flow there. Nothing changes. Chapter 19. Heaven is entropy in harmony. Heaven is not static perfection. Heaven is flow without fear, change without resistance, order without rigidity. It is dynamic balance. Chapter 20. Death revisited, the ultimate entropic release. Death terrifies the ego because identity dissolves, boundaries vanish, control ends. But from the universe's perspective, matter reorganizes, energy redistributes, information transforms. Nothing is destroyed, only forms end. Chapter 21. Resurrection as reorganization. Resurrection myths are not violations of entropy, they are symbolic reorganizations at a higher level. Death clears the field, entropy resets the board, new order emerges. Part 2, Final Conclusion. We now understand why breakdown precedes breakthrough, why depression can be initiatory, why suffering is friction, not punishment, why civilizations collapse, why ego resists entropy, why spiritual emptiness is sacred. In Part 3, we will go even deeper. Quantum uncertainty and entropy, free will and indeterminacy, love as a negentropic force, why compassion stabilizes chaos, the role of Christ consciousness in entropy, the cosmic reconciliation of order and decay. Part 3. Quantum reality, love as negentropy and the divine reconciliation. Chapter 22. Quantum uncertainty. Entropy at the root of reality. At the deepest level of physical reality, certainty does not exist. Atoms do not have fixed positions. Particles do not have defined paths. Outcomes are probabilities, not guarantees. This is not a limitation of measurement. This is how reality is structured. 22.1. The universe is fundamentally indeterminate. Quantum physics reveals that events are probabilistic. Outcomes are not predetermined. Reality exists as a range of possibilities until interaction occurs. This means entropy is not merely a macroscopic phenomenon. Entropy is woven into the fabric of existence itself. The universe is not a clockwork machine. It is a field of unfolding potential. 22.2. Why absolute order cannot exist. A perfectly ordered universe would allow no novelty, permit no freedom, generate no consciousness. Indeterminacy is not a flaw. Indeterminacy is the condition for choice. Entropy opens the door for creativity, agency, emergence, surprise. Chapter 23. Free will emerges from entropy. 23.1. Determinism is a low entropy fantasy. A deterministic universe is a closed system. No new information, no deviation, no freedom. Such a universe could not host moral responsibility, love, meaning, growth. Free will requires openness in the system. That openness is entropy. 23.2. Choice exists because outcomes are not fixed. If everything were predetermined, love would be mechanical, sacrifice would be meaningless, virtue would be automatic. Entropy introduces uncertainty. Uncertainty creates possibility. Possibility allows choice. Choice allows love. Chapter 24. Love as a negentropic force. Here we arrive at one of the deepest truths in existence. Entropy increases disorder globally, but locally, something extraordinary can happen. That something is love. 24.1. What negentropy actually means. Negentropy does not violate entropy. Negentropy is local ordering, coherence creation, pattern stabilization. Life is negentropic. Mind is negentropic. Love is the highest expression of negentropy. 24.2. Love creates order. Without control, control imposes order through force. Love generates order through resonance. Where love exists, systems self-organize, chaos stabilizes, fragmentation heals. Love does not freeze systems. Love keeps them coherent while dynamic. Chapter 25. Why compassion stabilizes chaos. 25.1. Compassion as system intelligence. Compassion is not weakness. Compassion is adaptive intelligence. In complex systems, cooperation outperforms domination. Empathy increases resilience. Mutual support reduces collapse. This is not ideology. This is system science. 25.2. Why fear accelerates entropy. Fear fragments perception. It isolates identity, narrows awareness, increases internal disorder. Fear-driven systems collapse faster. Love-driven systems absorb entropy without disintegrating. Chapter 26. Christ consciousness and entropy. Now we approach sacred ground, carefully, precisely, without dogma. Christ consciousness is not about religion. It is about how consciousness interacts with entropy. 26.1. The crucifixion as entropic surrender. The crucifixion narrative is not merely historical. It is symbolic at the deepest level. Christ does not resist death. Christ does not escape decay. Christ enters entropy fully. This is crucial. 26.2. Why resurrection follows surrender, not control. Resurrection does not occur because entropy was defeated. Resurrection occurs because entropy was allowed to complete its work. The old form dies, identity dissolves, control is relinquished, then reorganization. 26.3. He who loses his life shall find it. This teaching directly contradicts ego survival logic. The ego seeks preservation. Christ teaches surrender. Entropy dissolves false self. Love reorganizes true self. Chapter 27. The cross as cosmic symbol. The cross is not just an instrument of execution, it is a diagram. Vertical axis, spirit to matter, order descending into form. Horizontal axis, time, entropy, suffering, dispersion at the center, surrender, love, coherence. The cross is where entropy and order reconcile. Chapter 28. Why sacrifice transforms reality. Sacrifice is not loss. Sacrifice is releasing rigid structure, allowing entropy to pass through, freeing trapped energy. When something is willingly surrendered, entropy does not destroy it. Entropy transforms it. This is why love requires vulnerability. Chapter 29. Sin as entropic misalignment. Sin is not moral failure. Sin is misalignment with flow. It is clinging to permanence, resisting necessary change, choosing rigidity over love. The result is suffering, not punishment, but consequence. Chapter 30. Forgiveness as entropic reset. Forgiveness dissolves frozen patterns, releases stored resentment, restores system flexibility. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is entropy, clearing emotional debt. Chapter 31. Why humility is cosmically powerful. Humility is openness. It accepts uncertainty, releases control, allows learning. Arrogance is low entropy rigidity. Humility is high entropy adaptability. The meek inherit the earth because they bend, they survive, they transform. Chapter 32. The kingdom of God is dynamic, not static. Heaven is often imagined as eternal stillness. This is incorrect. A static heaven would be dead. The kingdom is living, adaptive, creative, responsive. It is order dancing with entropy. Chapter 33. Why judgment fails and mercy heals. Judgment freezes identity, mercy opens possibility. Judgment increases fragmentation, mercy restores coherence. This is why mercy triumphs over judgment. Chapter 34. The universe as a love entropy engine. We can now say this clearly. The universe expands entropy globally to allow love locally. Entropy creates freedom. Love creates meaning. They are not enemies, they are partners. Chapter 35. The human role in cosmic evolution. Human consciousness exists to experience entropy consciously, respond with love, stabilize complexity, midwife new order. You are not here to escape entropy. You are here to redeem it. Part 3, final conclusion. We have now established entropy as the source of freedom, uncertainty as the foundation of choice, love as negentropic coherence, Christ consciousness as surrender to transformation, compassion as stabilizing intelligence, forgiveness as system reset. In part 4 and final conclusion, we will complete the transmission by exploring the future of entropy and consciousness. The myth of heat death reinterpreted. Why meaning increases even as entropy grows. The ultimate reconciliation of decay and eternity. What this knowledge means for your life now. Part 4. The future of entropy, eternal meaning, and the human calling. Chapter 36. The Great Fear. Does entropy mean meaninglessness? One of the deepest existential fears in modern thought is this. If entropy always increases, does everything eventually become meaningless? This fear fuels nihilism, despair, existential anxiety, spiritual disconnection. But this fear rests on a false assumption that meaning requires permanence. It does not. 36.1. Meaning is not stored. It is generated. Meaning is not a substance. Meaning is not a static object. Meaning is not something that must last forever to be real. Meaning is an event. It happens when consciousness encounters novelty, relationship forms, love responds to uncertainty. Entropy does not erase meaning. Entropy creates the conditions for meaning to arise. 36.2. A perfectly ordered universe would be meaningless. Imagine a universe where nothing changes, everything is predictable, no surprise exists. Such a universe would be efficient, stable, sterile. There would be no story, no growth, no love, no courage. Meaning depends on risk. Risk requires uncertainty. Uncertainty requires entropy. Chapter 37. Reframing the heat death of the universe. Popular science often describes the end of the universe as heat death. Maximum entropy, no gradients, no work possible, no structure. This image terrifies people because it is framed without consciousness. 37.1. Heat death is a physical description, not a metaphysical one. Physics describes energy distribution, thermodynamic equilibrium, macroscopic behavior. Physics does not describe meaning, consciousness, awareness, interior experience. Entropy describes energy behavior. It does not negate awareness. 37.2. Consciousness is not proven to be entropy limited. There is no law stating that awareness must cease at equilibrium. Meaning requires energy gradients. Consciousness cannot reorganize at new scales. Human science has not reached the depth required to make such claims. To declare ultimate meaninglessness is premature arrogance, not knowledge. Chapter 38. Eternity is not infinite time. This is one of the most important corrections. Eternity is not endless duration, infinite extension of time, perpetual sameness. Eternity is timelessness. 38.1. Why timelessness transcends entropy. Entropy governs time. Where time dissolves, entropy no longer applies. Mystical traditions consistently report timeless awareness, eternal presence, changeless being beneath change. Entropy governs forms. It does not govern being. 38.2. The eternal exists through the temporary. The eternal does not oppose the temporary. The eternal expresses itself through it. Forms rise and fall. Being remains. Entropy moves forms. Presence endures. Chapter 39. The cosmic purpose of impermanence. Impermanence is not cruelty. Impermanence is mercy, renewal, liberation. A universe without impermanence would trap consciousness in outdated forms forever. Decay frees awareness. 39.1. Why clinging is the root of suffering. Suffering intensifies when we demand permanence from the temporary. We ask finite forms to bear infinite weight. Entropy exposes this mismatch. Pain arises when expectation resists reality. 39.2. Letting go is alignment with the cosmos. Letting go is not weakness. Letting go is wisdom. It means trusting transformation, releasing control, allowing flow. This is alignment with the deepest structure of reality. Chapter 40. The human heart as an entropy. Transmuter. Human beings are not passive victims of entropy. We are participants. The human heart has a unique role: to experience loss consciously, to respond with love rather than fear, to transform decay into meaning. This is alchemy in living form. 41. Art, music, and story exist. Art does not stop entropy. Art responds to it. Every song, painting, and story is an act of meaning-making, a defiance of nihilism, a declaration that experience matters. Beauty arises precisely because time is limited. 40.2. Why love hurts and why it is worth it. Love hurts because it opens us to loss. It binds us to impermanent forms. But love is worth it because it deepens presence. It intensifies meaning. It aligns us with creation's purpose. A painless life would be shallow. A loving life is profound. Chapter 41. The final illusion, that you are separate from the process. One last illusion remains to be dissolved. The idea that entropy is happening to you. Decay is something you suffer from. Change is an external threat. This is not true. 41.1. You are the process. You are not standing outside the universe watching it unfold. You are matter becoming aware of itself. Entropy learning to love. Order discovering surrender. Your life is not a side effect. It is the universe experiencing itself from within. 41.2. Your struggles are not accidents. Every breakdown you have faced loosened a false structure, expanded awareness, created space for truth. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. Chapter 42. What this knowledge calls you to do. This knowledge is not meant to be admired. It is meant to be embodied. 42.1. Stop interpreting breakdown as failure. When something collapses, a belief, a relationship, an identity, a plan, ask not, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is trying to be born? 42.2. Learn to distinguish necessary pain from resistance. Pain will come. Suffering is optional. Pain informs. Resistance multiplies pain into suffering. Acceptance turns pain into transformation. 42.3. Choose love over control. Control freezes systems. Love stabilizes them dynamically. Where you control, entropy fights you. Where you love, entropy works with you. Chapter 43. The final synthesis. We can now state the core truth plainly. Entropy is not the enemy of order. Decay is not the opposite of creation. Loss is not the negation of meaning. Death is not the end of life. Entropy is the engine. Order is the expression. Love is the guiding intelligence. Epilogue. The cosmic breath, complete. The universe inhales order. The universe exhales entropy. In that breath, stars are born and die. Civilizations rise and fall. Identities dissolve and reform. Souls awaken. Nothing essential is ever lost. Only forms change. And through it all, meaning increases not because things last forever, but because consciousness learns to love what is temporary. Final word for the listener. If you remember only one thing, remember this: decay is not failure. Decay is creation continuing, and you are not here to escape that process. You are here to participate in it consciously.